Ooh, yeah.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Denise Astorino, and I am the Community Engagement Coordinator at the LGBT Community Center of Greater Cleveland. I want to welcome you to our final series of our 2020 Artist Talks. And tonight, I am so excited to be having a conversation and sharing the works of amazing artist Letitia Waller. Letitia, I'm going to have you take it away, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started, some of the places where maybe you've shown your work? Just talk a little bit about yourself before we dive in.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I really want to say thank you so much for the LGBT Community Center of Greater Cleveland for hosting this exhibit or virtual exhibit. I am a native of Cincinnati, so I'm born in one of the three C's. Of course, you know, you had the Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But my career expands, you know, since childhood. So we're going to say well over 40 years of being a creative.
Mm-hmm.
So I have definitely been really designing and doing artwork for quite some time.
Awesome. Awesome. Where did you go to school? Can you talk a little bit about where you got your training or?
Well, I began really with my artwork as a child. My mother actually picked up on me actually doing drawings and sketching and doodling. And it's so funny, I think back on those moments, like when I used to be on the phone with some of my high school friends, I used to draw through the phone books. So, you know, of course, yeah, I'm dating myself, but it was just one of those things. But she even, you know, she would bring up to me when I was a little girl, she goes, you were always trying to mimic or draw something. You were drawing on my walls, you were drawing on my photographs, you know, so I'm very appreciative and humbled by her and my father for noting my creative skills. So throughout high school, though, it was a bit different because there were other students too that drew, but some of them, there was favoritism involved. So I kind of pushed back from that and started to focus more on my sports. But then when I'm to graduate, I did receive a scholarship to play women's college basketball. But right away, I declared my major is in art. So I was confident enough then that, you know, that was my calling. So I went from Central State University, which is in Wilberforce, Ohio. It's a HBCU. Then from there, I went to Ohio University, where I did finish and I got my BFA. And then from there, I went to Northern Illinois University, where I got my MA. And then I went to the University of Cincinnati, where I kind of went into a art education program. So I went back and got a MA again in art education. So I've got the degrees.
Yeah.
It's been a while though, but that was pretty much my, my execution into getting into my degrees and the steps that I took.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, okay, we'll dive right in and start with the works. We have them divided into different parts of an exhibit, if you will. I'm going to do some screen sharing and pull up. We've got all of the images placed on a PowerPoint. So without further ado, we explore the works of Letitia Waller. So in this first part, I was really enamored of all of the work. Actually, I love all of the work and the variety and the diversity of it. But part one, titled Selfies, can you talk a little bit about, this is a photography exhibit, correct?
Well, I really wouldn't call it photography as much as it is selfies. I'm using my So I'm not using any sort of kind of 35 millimeter camera or anything fancy like that. It's just a regular iPhone. And these selfies are just, selfie portraits, I call them. Different characters. you know, just coming up with some ideas as I play around. I like to do this on Sundays for some odd reason. Sundays is just a day to do that.
Okay.
And so I'm doing these characters, and I say characters, but they really are like spiritual beings that kind of present themselves to me in a way that when I look at a material that I have in my studio, I kind of, you know, utilize.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a lot of face painting, but the face painting really is just acrylic paint. It's not like your traditional face paint.
Right.
And then I'm charcoal. And so I'm smearing that all over my face. I'm putting handmade paper or decoupage over my face, using, you know, found objects. Like in a couple of these pieces, I'm actually got myself wrapped around in the trash bags. So, you know, I'm
Oh, that's,
using,
yeah.
yeah. So I'm manipulating and
Wow.
found objects, and then I'm just doing these quick shoots to see like actually what will come out. And then when they do, I just go into the settings and I kind of manipulate, distort the image, and just kind of see what I get. So like this particular piece is a decoupage. I'm actually using like a face cream, and then I get this handmade paper, and this paper really gives you kind of like a cobwebby effect when it's wet. So I just kind of put that all over my face, and then I kept layering it to get more of the whiter effects of the paper.
Wow.
So I just kept playing around with it. So
yeah. So can you talk about what were you going for with this? Because you talked a little bit about them being spiritual beings, being transformations. Can you talk a little bit about, because this is the same use of the decoupage paper, but it's a different angle, and you've got your glasses, which I see are the ones you're wearing now. Can you talk a little bit about what your thought process was with this image itself?
sure, this particular one, I actually decoupaged. I put layers and layers of the paper on top of my face. And once again, I liked to see how the overlayment went. And got done, I felt like this mummy, like this, if I were to have gone through a series of clouds, clouds kind of stuck to my face, then you would actually have the image of my face, because the clouds would kind of stick to whatever that, you know, that shape is. So the more I put on, the more I began to see that, you know, it was almost like hospital bandages or something, like an invisible person, right? So then I was trying to just take a look and see what the images was looking like. So I put on my glasses, and then I kind of liked that look. So I said, oh, this is really cool, because the hexagon shape of the glasses kind of mimicked some of the shapes in the actual handmade paper. So I just started to take selfies of that. And once again, I went into the lighting mode and distorted it enough that it just looks like I have like no eyes or anything. It's just these glasses sitting upon a face.
Wow.
So, and I
It's
really
really
like,
powerful.
I'm sorry?
I said it's a really powerful image, you know, because
Yeah,
even though you can't see your expression, there's so much that's being said with just with the image, like with the silhouette of it and everything. It's really,
correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I love these next two, again, are just different views of the same piece.
Mhm.
But can you talk a little bit about this? I love so much about this one.
Well, this was really interesting too, because the stenciling is actually a pattern that I got off of a grate, like a furnace grate. Go into a Home Depot store, because I work for Home Depot. But anyway, chance it does become a toy store for most artisans who are doing mixed media work. I'm actually in the corporate sector of Home Depot, but in the stores, it was very difficult to focus, because when new stuff was, you know, coming out, or you see all this material that you can make things with, it was just like, I'm gonna use that. There's something about that I'm gonna use, you know. So this was an example. I saw the grate. I saw that you can actually get them in different finishes, like silver, copper, black. white, you know, and I was like, there's something about this pattern. So I bought a sheet and I just cut out a small section and I just kind of bent it a little bit to for my face. And then I just took some white acrylic paint and I started to stencil. So I peeled off the different sections. So then the cardboardy things that are in my hair are actually chips that they use for packaging of different electronic equipment, not for any other use except for electronic equipment. So a friend gave me actually a couple of bags, and I kept it. And once again, it's like, I'm gonna use that for something.
Right.
And then started to kind of string them together. So I kind of made this wig, and I just kind of plopped it on my head when I did the thing on my face, and then came up with what you see now, which is a different angle, but it gives you the idea of how those chips were hanging from my hair.
Yeah.
And then all the way down my neck. So.
And just the scale to which, I mean, the amount of materials that you used, it's shown well in this. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm really, you know, I love, and we talk a little bit, like you and I have talked, you know, more through the past weeks about your work, and just, so there's such different like different layers of, we talk about identities and being artists and queer artists, and you know, and you layer on that you're a woman of color, that you're in the LGBTQ community. And you were talking a little bit about like one of the times we had a conversation, like, can you talk a little bit about how all of the different facets of yourself play into your work, and how you create your work, and do they play a facet? Because I guess your work is very introspective, and introspective coming out, and you know what I mean? And I love that, the different layers of it, you know, the different layers of self that you portray, you know, through your work. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, and that's actually very accurate. I like how you said that, coming out, because really, I don't have any control of the imagery. When a creative hits, and you kind of just, you know, expound on what's actually happening. And you're going to be placed in a situation where you're not going to be categorized. My creatives don't see a category other than spiritual. And even then, I can't really truly define that yet. Because, you know, I'm basing everything on mythology, what I've seen in other, you know, spiritual or tribal arts. And, you know, it's one of those things where you have to be very, you know, careful how you're going to label. So I don't really label. I kind of got away from that, because when it became so, you know, obscure, like, you know, everybody's like, okay, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, and that. And then, you know, you get all these other different definitions. And that alone was like, oh, you know, I look at myself in the mirror and I don't see all these words going across my face. So, you know, I basically, when I do my art and I'm doing these selfies, I'm trying to design a character that, if I had to imagine, that's what that character would look like.
Interesting.
And then it will probably change, because I'm just once again using materials that you know are around my studio. So, but it is it's challenging sometimes to speak with people who, you know, want to do that, want to put you into a label, or want, you know, your work to be identified. And it was so funny, because it takes me back to when I was in undergraduate school. And I don't know if you can see the piece behind me, but it was done in the 80s. And I kept that piece and another piece because it was a reminder. I had had numerous offers to sell these two paintings that I have. And this one in particular, the show, and you look at it, you don't see, well, you don't know what the artist looks like.
Right.
You have no idea. You see that piece. Well, of course, it was getting oohs and ahs, but then when I was brought into the actual gallery and, you know, was being introduced, I mean, it was violence, because they were not thinking not only a Black artist, but a female on top of that actually did this piece. So it was this eye-opening, and that's why I kept this one. And once again, like I said, another one, because it was a reminder of who I am, what my capabilities are as an artist, okay, and what I can actually do without having this, you know, being identified. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Well, yeah, can you, so this one, again, you are using, is it acrylic paint?
It's acrylic paint. I just kind of went abstract on this one. I had shaved my head. I just shaved it. And once again, it was one of those Saturday things where I just said, you know what, let me just go ahead and just, you know, just paint my face. I really love the Ethiopian tribe, the Surma people. And I follow them on Pinterest. I mean, all the photographs, they're the particular community that actually puts flowers in their hair, and they paint themselves. They usually they actually make their own paint from earth. So they're, you know, mixing mud, they're, you know, grinding the flowers. I mean, it's just so extraordinary, the stuff that they do. And so anyway, I kind of always think back on them when I'm doing my own personal painting on my body.
Yeah.
Even makeshift, but and behind me it is me thinking about them. So
Well, I love the clay texture to the image itself. It looks very like you are using earth material, you know. I love that.
yeah, I let it dry so it does kind of crack a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I do, you know, I do like 2 layers. I'll do like a kind of earth tone paint, and then I'll go over it again with white. And sometimes I just kind of just use my natural skin. Let that, you know, do its thing too.
So then this next image that we'll look at is an extension of that.
Yeah, this is pretty it's pretty crazy. I was actually in the shower and I was taking off that paint, but once again, it's me doing the selfies and manipulating, you know, the image. So the water, when I kind of was, you know, playing around with it, it looked more like sun rays or something. It didn't look like rain droplets or water droplets. So I kind of just, you know, kept changing the contrast, you know, bringing out the highlights, and, you know, using, you know, more of the black and white version of the iPhone app, and then just kind of, you know, distorting it again.
So working with filters and everything on.
Yeah. So once again, if it's going to lend itself to me to change, then I'll do that. I'll, you know, distort it, and then if I, like I said, if I capture a good image, because I'm constantly clicking, you know, I just got the phone down and I'm clicking. So then when I get done, I look and say, oh yeah, this is pretty cool. Let me see if I can change it. So
right.
You know,
It's
but yeah, it turned out. It turned out.
Now talk about like working one way and having the image be portrayed in another. This last image in the photography section, I love this. Can you talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, it's pretty, it was pretty bizarre. I just was pulling my hoodie. I love hoodies. And so I kind of just wrapped this one around my face, just clowning around in the mirror. And I pulled it, and I clicked. And so at the time when I clicked, I have a African comb, which is right above my mirror in my bathroom. So I saw that and I said, oh, that's there. Okay. So once again, I started to use the distortions and change it, the actual comb looked like it was floating. So it's almost like this, you know, the space type of thing, like the wind is blowing, kind of gives you that effect in this realm. And that this comb is like my guardian, right? So it's kind of like floating on top of me, you know, or above me, as if it's like a protector, or if it's like a symbol as to who I am, like my You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was fun doing that. I really was happy about when that, that took place.
Technically speaking, it's because to me, like imagery and the symbolism of it, it's very like you talk about like mythology, and it's very it is we talked about it before, like it's very queenly, it's
Yeah.
goddess like, and like it does, like you have the wind blowing, but then also like the contrast, the
Hmm.
level of the black and whites that you use, and the high contrast of light. I am just noticing now, and I am tickled by this. The
Uh-huh.
card itself, if you look at the bottom of it, I'm loving how it looks like it has eyes looking down at you.
Exactly.
Eyes are like,
Like little like upside down
yeah,
uh, scrubbing bubble thing or whatever. I mean,
yes,
all right, I'm telling you,
yeah.
I'm totally there. I get it. It's a
Yeah. I like the eyebrows. It even has like, it's like, it's looking at you like, what are you doing now?
and
So
then
you could go into total like you're rebelling, and we could just go on about this image. I love that.
it's really wow, because if you did have a clearer view of it, it's actually a little figurine inside. So it's really, because I know it and it does, but I thought about that too, because I first looked at it and I was like, oh, but it's just once again, it's like an organic form. 'Cause I'm a big fan of film noir, and I lately went back and rewatched Jean Cocteau, La Belle et Bête.
Mhm.
And I've seen that movie before a number of times, but each time I take away something different. And his illusions and the way he did it, I mean, it was like, I looked, and this is black and white again, and it's like a lot of times when the sculptures were moving, you
Mhm.
know it's just these forms that, and then the shadows.
Yeah.
So take away from that the shadows. So I look at that too. I reference that when I'm doing most of my black and white, or if I'm transforming them into black and whites.
Oh,
So
it's
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Wow. So this next section we're going to talk about, part two, is the Prismacolor drawings.
Mhm.
So can you talk a little bit about, for people that don't know, I know a little bit about Prisma, but can you talk a little bit about what Prismacolor is, and then we'll go into the images?
Sure. I always describe Prismacolor pencils as like a high-end, color pencil.
Okay.
It's a standard, but it is like it's a more of a refined wax. Prismacolor, when I first was introduced to it, I really seriously was treating it as if it were a colored pencil, but it's not. It doesn't have that hard wax in it. It has more of a softer, so
Yeah.
you blend it better,
Okay.
and that's why it's a little bit more than colored pencils. And Prismacolor, though, I just, like I said, as a pencil, I love it because it's bringing on color instead of using your standard gray sketch pencils. Prismacolor pencils are the next thing for me with color, to add color.
And
So
having the softer lead, it blends well too, doesn't it?
it does, right. I think it has less wax in it, if my memory serves me correct. I know the pigments are very specific too. So I'm not sure how all that plays as far as production goes. I used to be so savvy with it because I worked in an art supply store in San Francisco, and there was a Parisian company we dealt with. Sennelier was the company, and they actually used to, send us videos on how some of the material was made. So,
Wow.
these Prismacolor drawings are all done on Arches black paper.
Okay.
So my challenge was to take this, blank piece of black paper and add color to it.
Okay.
And that's what I did. And I worked hard at doing it too. Some of the areas, which lent itself to this leave the black areas was cool because in that way I worked on my shading.
Yes.
So anyway, I did the series. based on the seasons, because the pandemic really hadn't had us on lockdown just yet. I think I started these off a little bit after my birthday, which was the end of February. Pretty much, yes, when I kicked it off, because I know I began to, well, we started to work from home off and on in the month of March. So anyway, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because my discipline was, I was not going to go try to do stuff every weekend, trying to get involved and stuff. It's like, no, you're in your space now. You know, you're in your safe space, and you need to now, you know, dedicate your time now to your art. You know, in order to do that, I had to get back into the practice of drawing. And so these are the series that was birthed from that. So, but it was fun. It was fun to do that.
The shading, you talk about the shading and just the, again, just technically with the drawing, it's, I mean, with it's just amazing the amount of depth that you get with these. It really does look like, now this one is winter, and I love, if you can talk about a little bit about the snowflakes and your thought behind that, but just the level of like 3D quality that you get. It literally looks like mixed media, and I know that they aren't, because we're going to talk about your mixed media. But really, it just, I mean, there are levels on this that make the flakes look like they are piling up.
Yeah, and it was fun because, you know, I went and I said, well, I didn't want to do like traditional snowflakes or snowflakes that look like they, I don't know. Snowflakes are crystals, and crystals, you know, they form as hexagon shapes. So I went with that, and then I went further into looking at molecules and the shape of molecules. So I took that as, you know, everything is water, right?
Yeah.
So as I was doing her hair, because it's really an afro, and so as the snowflakes were accumulating, okay, they were actually building, you know, her hair. So as you see the lighter spots of the actual snowflakes is, you know, to kind of what her hair will be turning into eventually. But you also see that it's kind of like dipping a little bit. So, you know, I'm trying to hold metamorphosed occur, all based on her hair, and, you know, hit. So, you know, you got them, you know, coming down meteors. And so my whole emphasis of that, and of course, is the queen of snow. She's a snow queen.
Yes.
She's a black snow queen. And you know, I you know, even put the dot, which represents so many, you know, aspects of spirituality. So I used the dot, once again, that one, you know, lone snowflake, and pretty much turned it out that way. So
I love the, it always reminds me of, you know, I've worked with theaters before that create productions from folk tales.
yeah,
The work could so be used as art for like an African folk tale, you know what I mean? Or like the, you know, different queens of different seasons, you know, Mother Earth. We talk a little bit about Mother Earth and the different qualities of your work going through like the stages of a person's life, and the feminine quality that Mother Earth, you know, I just love it. I just love it so much.
Yeah, I mean, in this piece too, it goes into, so you see that warm spot, which is heading towards, you know, after, you know, winter comes spring. So, you know, I did that from band. So I'm connecting them all time kind of together there. But yeah.
The third part, we talk about a little bit about charcoal drawings, and this next image that is just amazing. Can you talk about you went through a journey with this piece?
Yeah, this piece is so, I had it, at one point I had it framed, like, you know, considering it done for some odd reason. But anyway, and I do have the perfect frame for it too, which is, you know, really so funny, because I rolled it up, I took it out the frame and I just rolled it up, and I knew at some point I'd be doing something with it. And with all the movement that I was doing, I was afraid it was going to get damaged anyway. So anyhow, I got done with the piece we're going to see next. And I had it, and I said, let me just unroll this, because I know I have to doctor it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I know, and it, by golly, hasn't changed. And like I said, my works are letting me know, hey, look, this is what you need to do with me. And, you need to revive me a little bit. So this, and I'm really working on my lighting. Charcoal is not the easiest medium sometimes to use. You have to be able to blend it. You have to blend it. And I have calluses on my fingers. I just, my neck, everything is like, there's no glamour here.
Right.
None whatsoever. I'm blending by hand, and I have to make sure that my fingertips don't have that much oil, just natural oil. So I have to, sometimes go and wash my hands and then go back in and blend, go back in and blend. So you can see the size of this piece and the amount of work I'm putting into it, as far as getting it to pop. And, I'm looking at my trees as the sequoia trees. And, these big, huge red trees, which I had the pleasure of visiting a number of times when I lived in San Francisco or California. And, it was just like, I have to come correct. I just can't draw a tree and put lines down the middle, right? You have to really give it that look, and also with the mask added onto it as if they have their own, identity. Each tree has their own. And so I came up with that because I was like, she's a forest dweller. She actually, the mask that's from the Masi people, Burkina Faso. And so I actually own that mask. I have the mask in my possession. And I'm, what else can we do? You're on this, you're on the ground and you're amongst these trees. So it's kind of like they're tree spirits. And they're emerging because she's actually in her space. She's actually in this little area of the forest where only certain light is coming through. It's like a cathedral in the in the forest. So anyhow, I'm really big on trying to now work on lighting. Lights too, because even when I'm doing my selfies now, I'm going to be more specific about how lighting looks. And so I'm just kind of shape it and, just kind of pull it out through these trees. But I'm glad I went back to revisit this piece. It's really speaking to me, and it's giving me a lot of hope on, what I was doing before and correcting it now. So.
And the thing about your work is that, and it's something that always draws me to really when a person creates something that it looks like there's life and there's movement in the image, and your work, no matter what it is, in all the ones we've seen, there's motion going on, there's some sort of life force, there's some sort of just constant movement, and it just is fascinating, whether it's like the light shining down, the person, the elements of like the environment, or I just love all of the different layers that you're working
with. And I mean, and thank you so much, because that is really highly important for me. Even the that's intertwining her body, it almost gives you this kind of like, snake feeling, sort of. Which I really didn't want to get into. I didn't want it to be perceived as such.
Right.
But let's just say, I mean, it is what it is. But it's more too of a comfort type of thing. It's this band of light that's wrapping around her body. But my intentions definitely at the beginning was to have it look as a piece of mud cloth, and and just giving her this, this extra protection, sort of. But you'll see, me mimicking again shapes. And coming through. So, and then this one, this one is Dawn and Dusk, and just before I was deciding that this piece was done, I was sitting here drinking some coffee and I was looking at it and I said, hey, you know what? Let me go ahead. I want the eyes, the sun and the moon to represent, the eyes. So,
Wow.
of course, with dawn or dusk, I mean, you're going to look sleepy, which is the one. And then, of course, one on your right is, of course, sunrise, sunset, that type of thing. But also to the Ibeiji twins, yin and yang as the mother in the middle. And this is a spiritual concept. Ibeiji twins I follow because I was a twin. So I always will be doing things that are like, twos. I always have and always will. And, when I learned the concept about Ibeiji twins years and years and years ago, I was like, yeah, that's me. That's the symbolism. So I always do twos if I can. So anyway.
What are the Ibeiji twins? I haven't heard.
Yeah, Ibeiji twins are Yoruba. And it was based on the idea of, well, not idea, but when a village mother has twins, normally she's first because only animals can have, babies in multiples. Okay. So, but then, for some odd reason, it's like a folklore. The Ibeiji twins, right? One twin died and one survived. And so, but still they were casted out because they weren't supposed to be a part of this particular, cycle of life. So Yemiya, who was the ocean mother, okay, she decided that she was going to get these Ibeiji twins, that she would take care of them and nurture them. So I just picked up on that particular. There's so many different ones that keep coming, but one in particular too that when I was in grad school, when I started really getting into the Ibeiji twins and the Yoruba people, was that when a twin dies, they make a doll that represents that spirit of that baby. And so both twins are fed and clothed and housed as if they were alive. So they're dealing with the spirit. But the thing is, though, with the surviving twin, okay, they're looked upon as a spirit. Because they're housing two different, two parts of themselves. And so that was me, because I sometimes, I can be really, psychic on some things. And it used to kind of spook me out. I remember my mother, and I really spooked her out. I thought I had met a cousin. We used to go to one of my elder aunt's houses and to visit. And I used to always go in this room and I used to talk to her daughter who was in a wheelchair. And I figured she never came out of the room because she was in a wheelchair. So we were over there playing. So one day my parents or people were sitting on the porch talking. And so I come up to my mother and I said, oh yeah. I said, well, Mama, Aunt Ethel's daughter, Claire, I remember talking to her. My mother looked at me like, what? I said, yeah, she was sitting there in the wheelchair, right? And my mother's like, Letitia, go somewhere and sit down. And I said, I'm looking at her all disappointed. She said, she died before you were born. Wow. So I'm looking at her like, okay. And after that, and I remember that as if it were yesterday. And I remember the look on her face. And she and I just recently revisit that conversation because now she's 91. My mom's is 91. She's sharp as a tack though. And oh yeah, I remember you telling me that. She goes, I don't know who told you that story. You must have heard it from somebody. And I'm looking at her like, no, okay, but we're just gonna let that go. But I remembered it. So anyway, I mean, I'm kind of giving you like a really quick synopsis of what Ibeiji twins, break down into. But one thing in particular for me is that they are twins, that they are spiritual. And I like the whole idea of that would be the definition of me and my sister, because I do know it was a sister. So, and it works out. So, yeah. So this piece, that's where that piece came from. And I'm a water sign. And it's just like, you know, it's all the dualities of it all. And each, actually, once again, we're going to look at mud cloth, because that's what I'm doing. So the middle piece, the design is actually a Dinka symbol that symbolizes, and then the ones on either end have, the ones on either end have the same concept as peace and rebirth.
Okay.
So
Wow.
yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I love the and you call it mud cloth, correct?
Yeah, it's
I love how that ties into, yeah.
yeah, oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the cloak that I would choose to wear. You know, it's what our robes would be.
Wow. Very
Yeah.
cool. Okay, the fourth part is paintings.
Yeah, not too many of those, just two. I kind of tossed them in. I tossed that in because I still feel this connection with this piece. It's not as eerie as it looks. It is a skull in the back. Okay.
Oh.
Front is a white lotus,
Mm-hmm.
and the white branches or bones. And so doing this piece, I was, you know, channeling Georgia O'Keeffe, Frida Kahlo,
Oh, nice.
Elizabeth Catlett, all these women artists who, you know, actually have, you know, used the skull in some form, especially with Frida, because of, and then, you know, Georgia O'Keeffe with the bones, because, you know, her living in Santa Fe and or going out in Albuquerque in the deserts and, you know, coming across these bones. I kind of got into this piece. So there's a pattern around it that, you know, once again, that great talking about, while on another one had a different pattern. So I used spray paint. And then I went back in, and you can kind of see it over in the right-hand side where I used the spray paint, and I kind of went back over it again with some white to give it that depth. So it has a pattern in the background. So that's what's in, you know, mixed media type of things happen in the work. So
very cool. Very
yeah.
cool.
Now this,
yeah.
I talk because it's important. I actually don't have this anymore because I painted over it. And when I found that I had an actual image of it, I was like, why did I do this? And because I wasn't in a space that I could do it. And it's really the Pieta, which is, you know, like, you know, Mary holding Christ. And then I did my version of it. It's, you know, it's my woman of color version of it, and all four women. And spiritually too, they're all, you know, connecting. And I added my other two images off to the side. This is one of these pieces that I will definitely, you know, recreate again. But I want to share that sometimes when you do go through some stuff, I have this habit of just not doing something in a way, right? Was a good thing because I can always bring it back. But one thing I had to stop myself from doing was not liking something and then paint over it, and come across it. Because I mean, when I painted over it, I was like, okay, so I took this canvas and I cut it up, and I still have the remnants of it. So I'll probably at some point, you know, have it as a part of a design again, coming back through. But yeah. And this is the part of a drawing too, which I did a while back that a friend actually has. And so, like I said, I'm going to be recreating a couple of things. So
very cool. Very cool. I look forward to seeing the recreation of it. So we're going to come back to sketches, but really what I wanted to look at your mixed media, where you're taking all of the different elements, the found objects, and you're putting them all together. So, can you talk a little bit about your mixed media section?
Sure. That was a part of that, that discipline mode where at the same time I was working on these, I had just finished up the seasonal series. And I had these kind of like, I guess, tourist masks. The person I deal with at a flea market, he looks out for me. He's so cool. And he's like, hey, I got a bunch of these masks, and I'm always like, oh, let me come and look, because last time he said that, I was honest with him. I said, dude, you got some good finds here. I mean, I'm not. I mean, some of these masks could go up to as high as $600. And as we bonded, and we've known each other now for probably, I would say about 13 years. He's just like, hey, Letitia, come get these Buddha heads. Hey, Letitia, come get these. And he's selling me next to nothing. So I mean, this the best friend I could have, right?
Yeah.
And he gets this mask, and like this one, it was a tourist mask. It looked like it had some termite damage possibly, because it had some little holes in the front and sides of it. So anyhow, I had them in a bag, and I finally, took them out, and I said, what am I going to do with you? So I spray painted them, cleaned them up real well, spray painted them, patched up some areas or what have you. And then, I went in with charcoal with this, and handmade paper and wood and PVC pipe. And the film Metropolis.
Yeah.
Okay, the part where she's actually transforming into like the robot, sort of.
Yes.
Like where she's going through that whole,
yeah.
Where the lightning is kind of hitting her.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that part where she's actually turned into the robot?
Yes.
Okay, so I kind of was thinking about that.
Wow.
And because you'll see the post where it just shows her head. Anyway, I was thinking about that, and I was like, oh, okay, so this ancient face, and then I was doing these abstract pieces around it to kind of look like this, metropolis, and then in the background, I just cut plexiglass pieces or plastic, and I spray painted those angles on it to make it look like a halo, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And then the blue thing on the bottom is actually the world,
Oh.
So I was, then I use these doorknobs, and so I had a good time testing myself on this, to see what I was going to come up with.
It looks like something that would be part of a like a shrine. You know what I like?
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's how she looked. Because when she was saving all the people who were the lower working class,
Mm-hmm.
Because her boyfriend was the son of the owner of the actual company. She was finding herself in two worlds, but anyway, she was transforming. And so I looked at that as, this is a duality, because you look at this ancient face.
Wow.
And it's like, it's almost like this, this goddess that's come to take care of all this, modernized, worshiping.
Yes.
This is like the actual way of doing it. So,
Wow.
so it was an
Yeah.
experiment.
So what about this one?
And this one was, I think this actually was the first. Yeah, this was the first one, the first mask that I used.
Okay.
And I had used the board that it's on. I had used it to spray paint something, and I just captured that image of the spray paint that was left. And I received
Wow.
these different earth symbols, Adinkra earth symbols around this piece. So this is Mother Earth, or 10 spirits. And there's like 10 of the pieces going around her head. And, then I took these beads that I found, and I kind of glued them on. And it was just, once again, just because I have these beads.
Yeah.
What can I do with these beads? What can I do with this piece? So, I came up with collaboration.
Wow.
Kachina dolls, with Kachina dolls.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole burst of energy, light. So,
Wow.
and it was fun to do too.
You know, and it's
A
interesting.
challenge.
Yeah, it's interesting with this because I know it's a board, but
Mm-hmm.
what's fascinating to me is again, your play, I don't know if I can use my cursor, but
Uh-huh.
here down at the bottom, it
Mm-hmm.
looks like a reflection. So
Mm-hmm.
this looks like a mirror, and
Uh-huh.
oh shoot, no, go back. But it looks like it almost looks like someone's reflection in the mirror, but then the face is protruding coming out of the mirror.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I got you talking about the dark.
Yeah, this looks like her
Right?
her
The
neck.
shadow part. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
neck and like
Mm-hmm.
shoulders right there.
Mm-hmm.
It,
Ma'am.
yeah, the whole thing is fascinating to me. Again, with your
And it's so funny that you say that because yeah, it does. It's exactly where I was at with that because I used some plastic. Oh, how can I? Plastic leaves from flowers,
okay.
and I actually around that to give that kind of the concept because you can see her neck right here.
Yes.
So it looks like that quick look, like she's protruding out,
Yeah,
and that's the effect that I want to have. So
that's
yes,
awesome.
very accurate, very good. Thank
Thanks.
you.
We are
Yeah, good.
our internet connection is getting getting a little get choppy. So we're gonna try to
Okay.
continue until, but if it goes, yeah, I
That's,
don't,
yeah,
the
you're stuck.
problems, yeah, the dangers of virtual. But talk about bird feeder.
Right back. We were going good so far, so we only got like what 2 more, I think. But this is bird feeder, self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, this is bird. The twig. I are
Oh.
um lovers. Anyway, she was my heart, and but I need to hang on to it for a while because, like I said, I went and I picked them from her yard, and it was so funny because every time I used to me one request the weirdest things. And I said, hey, I'm going to yard pick some tree bark. She looked at me like, go ahead, help yourself. And I know in the back of her head, like she's doing now.
Wow.
So anyway, I got there to look like a tree house. And then once again, that's one of those recycled masks. This one was, it actually had bird thing on top of it. And this was from Indonesia. And stickers all inside of it, talking about made in Indonesia. I took that and then I used my actual, because I actually have spools in my ears, I took what I usually, the first step to stretching my ears.
Mm-hmm.
So I saved those, but then I put it like in a nose ring for the bird feeder and on the earlobes too. So fortunately, you can't see it, you saw it in person, but
Gotcha.
and then I use the top. I acorn squash seeds. I love me some acorn squash. I mean, since we've been on the pandemic anyway, I love acorn squash. So I'm saying, what am I gonna do with these seeds? I could just throw them away to come up with something. So I glue squash seeds on top of the head to make it look like bird seed, and
That is amazing.
so it's a fun piece too.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. You know what? We should probably end here. Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay, we're gonna.
Oh, there we go.
Where'd you go?
On again.
Oh, your video went out.
I think